So this is me, I'm Diane Hull. I'm the Senior Associate Director on the Graduate Student and Postdoc team, which means that I lead the team in career services that works with graduate students and postdocs in 9 of Penn's 12 schools. We have another team that works with graduate students and postdocs in the other 3 schools. I always just like to share a little bit about how our office is organized so that you know that when you're scheduling an appointment to speak to a career advisor, you're speaking to someone who only works with graduate students or postdocs. So I would love for you guys to introduce yourself in the chat. Who are you? What's your name? What department are you in? Are you thinking about a two-pronged approach to your job search? I would love to hear a little bit more about that. So please introduce yourself in the chat. I'm going to put my chat over on the side. So as you introduce yourself, I can see. We always like to know who's here and to see a little bit about where you're coming from. Okay, so here are some of our goals for today. We really have 4 things that we would like to do. One is understand some of the key differences in academic and non-academic job searches. I do want to be really, really clear that everyone's academic and non-academic job search is really different. And so there's so many nuances, and that's where it can be really helpful for you to schedule a time to come in and speak with someone to talk a little bit more about the specificities of what it is you're interested in pursuing. The second thing we'd like to do is learn how to develop some strategies for managing both of these job searches simultaneously, right? So you as a job seeker who is finishing up your PhD or wrapping up a postdoc, you have a lot to do, right? And so what we really, really are interested in is thinking a little bit about what are some of the strategies that you might be able to do in order to manage both of these. The third is how to develop a cohesive narrative. What you will see me mention time and time again is networking is really important, and you're going to be networking with different kinds of people. And what you probably don't want to do is share with everyone, well, I'm not really sure what I want to do, and so I'm sort of pursuing everything at this point. And so thinking a little bit about how can you create a narrative that's more specific to what it is you're looking for. And then finally, I really want you guys to learn a little bit more, if you don't know already, about some of the available resources here in Career Services to help you explore your interests and think about what you're interested in doing next. Okay, so these are 2 paths with very different processes. And so we want to give kind of an overview, again, recognizing that depending on what type of academic role you'd be pursuing, what type of role beyond academia you'd be pursuing, there's a lot of nuances. This is sort of a general overview of what this might look like. Okay, so the academic job search, I said fixed timeline, mostly question mark, right? So obviously every field is going to be variable in some way. What we do know though about academic job searches is that generally speaking, when you're speaking about tenure track opportunities, those opportunities are just starting to come out now. They will come out until the early fall, right? We do know that that's a pretty good timeline. Whereas when you talk about things beyond academia, there are certainly opportunities for if you are someone who is looking to graduate in May 2026, there are certainly things that you could be applying to now outside of academia, but for the most part, not really. The academic job search is very focused on your CV and on your research, right? Even if you're pursuing a tenure track opportunity that's more teaching focused, the research is really very, very heavy. And this can be a long process. If you are someone who has seen a job posting in August for a faculty job that would be appointed, say, July 1st of 2026, the job is posted, maybe the deadline's in September, then they're going to do first round interviews. You know, it could be easily 6 months or more from the time that job is posted until the time they identify a final candidate that they're going to make an offer to. You could see a 6-month time frame outside of academia, but probably you're going to see something a little bit more quickly. And when we think about roles beyond academia in terms of what the timeline looks like, we really think of kind of rolling deadlines. Again, I said mostly. The vast majority of hiring in the United States is done when someone needs to hire someone. They don't often know today, I'm going to need someone July 1st, 2026, like in academia, we often see in the tenure track role. So most hiring, when you see a job posting, they're looking for someone to start in the not so distant future. I say mostly because there are exceptions to that. The most visible and most notable exception that some of you might be interested in is consulting. Consulting deadlines for advanced degree candidates, PhDs, and postdocs are really very far in advance, right? They are an outlier in terms of there are so many countless other opportunities beyond academia that haven't even been posted yet and won't be posted until April, right? But are also kind of looking toward that July 1st start. The second thing that's going to be a key difference is the focus is much more going to be on the resume and the transferable skills. So if you look back to that academic job search, CV and research focus, the research is really key. And the research is really important to put on your resume. But what's most important about the research is perhaps not the research itself, but the transferable skills that you're gaining by conducting that research. That's what that resume is going to be focused on. And as I mentioned earlier, you generally will see a faster turnaround time. It may not be as fast as you would like, right? So often if you submit a resume, you'd like to hear something back the next day. It's not going to be that quick, but it's going to generally move more quickly than you would find in the academic job search. So UVA's PhD Plus office has done a nice job of putting together these two timelines. So you can sort of see these. So if you are someone who is thinking that you're graduating next summer or looking to be working next summer, here's sort of an overview of what you might find. So right now and into the early fall, you're going to see those job postings become available. You're already seeing that depending on your field, and you will continue to see that through the early fall. Generally speaking, in late October and early November, you will see application deadlines, although I've seen them in September too. Generally speaking, we're seeing a first round of interviews, which is almost exclusively being done virtually at this point by the end of the fall semester. Most search committees are sort of motivated to work under that timeline to say, let's do these first round interviews by the end of the semester. You'll often see late December into January, they might start inviting people for on-campus interviews, which will take place in January, February, March. March being a little bit on the late side, I would tend to see that more January and February. But remember, they're going to have to bring anywhere from 2 to 4 finalists. So then you're going to have to finish all those before you get to job offers, which are going to be March and April. And then again, we're looking at a July or August appointment, right? So this is the timeline, generally speaking, that we're seeing for tenure track opportunities. So when you look at beyond the academy, again, thanks to UVA for putting this together, let's look a little bit about what is the time frame that you might be looking at. And a lot of this is more what you might be doing as opposed to what they might be doing. So in the early fall and late summer, where we are right now, reviewing job postings and identifying employers of interest. However, what we know is that August, September, October, if you're not graduating until May and maybe ready to work next June, July, August, applying to a job in September, October, November might be a little bit too early from them. There are exceptions to that. I mentioned consulting. There are some large organizations that will really do some sort of recruiting early. But the vast majority of hiring in the United States is done on an as-needed basis when someone needs someone. When I talk to recruiters who work with PhDs and postdocs regularly, they recognize that when you graduate can sometimes be a moving target until you schedule that defense date. I'm talking to a lot of people right now who are like, I think I'm graduating in May. It could be August though, depends kind of how things go, right? And so when you work with recruiters and when you work with hiring managers and talent acquisition that's familiar with PhDs and postdocs, and when I talk to them and I say, how far in advance do you want to hear from a PhD or postdoc? They would usually say about 6 to 9 months in advance is fair. More than that, they're like, hey, we're not quite ready for you yet, right? We need, right now we're focusing on our immediate needs. Again, you will see exceptions to that. Consulting being a notable exception. Another notable exception is industry postdocs. For those of you that are in the life sciences, those tend to be kind of programs that they bring in as a cohort. And so sometimes those deadlines are a little bit farther in advance. So in late October and early November, what would you want to be doing if you're someone who's on the job market beyond academia? informational interviews and working on your job materials. Informational interviews are not an interview for an actual job. They are an interview for you to get some information. In December, again, that's 6 to 9 months in advance, identifying job ads and ensuring all materials are ready and that you're doing your networking. And then January through May is really when you're applying for jobs and when you're networking. So one of the big differences that you're going to see with this is that in the academic job market, you're really applying very soon, right? And if you're looking at beyond academia, you're probably, unless you're looking at some of these things that are going to have deadlines far in advance, you're looking more into the winter and into the spring when you would start applying. So where do these clash, right? Like, where are the conflicts that we're seeing between these two? The first is early to mid-fall. This is when those academic application deadlines are, and this is also the perfect time to be conducting informational interviews beyond academia, right? It's the perfect time for you to be connecting with alumni, talking to people to learn a little bit more about what it is you're interested in. Because for the most part, you're not going to see jobs in the early to mid-fall that you're applying to beyond academia. What else is going on during this time that's taking away from these academic application deadlines is career fairs on campus. Career fairs on campus start right after Labor Day. There are so many that I think PhDs and postdocs would be interested in going to gather information, but you do need to be prepared for those. So that's a clash. The other thing is the materials. So for one, you're using a CV. For the vast majority of jobs beyond academia, you are using a resume, which is a different document than the CV. You could build a resume off the CV, but it is really a very different document. So you're sort of needing to spend time building these two things. The other clash is the time spent. Academic documents take an incredible amount of time to prepare. And if you've participated in any of our programs over the last few days, one of the things that I think you've probably seen time and time again is how we're telling you that everything needs to be customized, 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 right? What does that mean? An incredible amount of time. And there's so many documents that you need to apply to academic jobs. You know, for an academic job, you're definitely going to have a CV, a cover letter, a research statement, very likely a teaching statement. So that's 4 things right there. And the teaching statement and the research statement are pretty extensive, right? When you're applying to jobs beyond academia, you will need a resume and most likely a cover letter, and that's it. You know, you're not going to need those intensive documents. Okay, so I wanted to present a visual chart to show you a little bit about what might you be doing at different times of year if you're trying to do both of these, right? So that you can really think about, is this something that you're ready to jump into? And if so, what is it that you need to do? So on the academic job search in the fall, the primary focus has got to be on those academic roles, right? You are submitting first round applications. For those of you who are applying to postdoc postdoc programs in which there's some sort of a deadlines, like some of the Society of Fellows, some of the national labs that will really recruit far in advance, those application deadlines are coming up. And you may need to begin to prepare for possible campus visits and first round interviews. If you're looking beyond academia, here are some of the things that you want to be doing. Plunging into networking, because that's really the most important thing you can do. Attend career fairs, which again, attending a career fair may only take you an hour or two, but you need to prepare in advance. Creating customized resumes, LinkedIn deep dive, and we're going to go a little bit more into LinkedIn in terms of what you want to be doing with that. There is the potential to apply to jobs, again, low potential for most fields. In the winter, you're going to be on the academic job market, you're going to be doing campus visits. You're going to start to see the potential for visiting assistant professor positions posted and additional postdoc applications. If you are someone particularly in the sciences or in engineering who's going to be reaching out to specific PIs, advisors, seeing if maybe they're interested, that's going to take time in terms of looking for postdocs. If you are going beyond academia, at this time, you're going to be doing deeper networking, use on what you learned from hopefully some of these conversations you had in the fall, further customization of resumes, job applications for some industries. Spring 2026, this is final campus visits, possibly offers and negotiations, and applying for visiting positions if that's something that you're pursuing. Beyond academia, this is the heavy job applications and continued networking. Summer 2026, continue to work on your research, continue to work on your teaching, potential to pursue a second round on the market if things didn't work out for you the first time. What you will see if you're interested in consulting is that deadlines are so far in advance. Some of them have already passed so what we're saying is summer 2026, you're going to see those deadlines for 2027 start, and continued exploration of career interests and networking. So this is overlaps, hard choices, right? I'm having a really hard time making this big life decision. I'm sure whatever you'll do, you'll end up regretting it, right? So what we're here to talk a little bit about is how can you approach trying to do both of these without making yourself crazy. So things that I want you to consider for yourself before you decide that you want to pursue both of these at the same time, or I should say, it's not an either or how much do you decide you want to put the weight on the academic side versus putting the weight on the beyond academia side. So where are you with your dissertation, right? If you're targeting a May or August 2026 graduation and you've really made a lot of headway, your research is kind of wrapped up, you're just writing, you can really pivot maybe away from the dissertation comfortably while doing some more job searching things than if you're still in the thick of research, right? So you really have to think about that. What else are you working on, right? Do you have a paper that you're trying to get out? Do you have a family? Do you have family obligations? You know, what else is going on in your life right now that's going to dictate how much time do you have? What is your relationship with your advisor like? This is really important, and again, a really individualized question. There are probably people in this room who could never tell their advisor that they are even thinking about doing something outside of academia, right? And then there are probably other people who have an advisor who has a really open conversation about, you know, what your interests are. And so thinking a little bit about what's that support going to look like? What's that relationship going to be like? What might they offer you? Only you can really answer that question. And also, what is your level of self-assessment? If you have done a lot of self-assessment and you really have a pretty good idea of what it is you'd be interested in outside academia, it's going to be a lot easier to pursue that than if you're like, I don't know, I could do anything, right? So you really have to think about where you are with your self-assessment. Debunking misconceptions. First and foremost, there is not one timeline for jobs beyond academia, right? I meet with lots and lots of PhDs and postdocs who will be like, so I'd like to apply to things outside academia. When should I start? Well, the question is, it depends what you want to do and depends what the opportunities are out there. The process for applying to roles outside of academia really varies widely. But I think you can do both of these job searches if you have two things going for you. One, you have a relatively specific target in mind beyond academia, right? So you're sort of pursuing something on the narrower side. And if your documents are ready to go. Because as any of you know for sure, if you have ever started to put together job search documents, whether for a tenure track position or for something beyond academia, it always takes much longer than you think that it will. Okay, here's some pros. Pros to having a two-pronged approach. One, you're keeping your options open, right? Maybe academia is your number one choice and you're thinking, but if that doesn't work out, I really want to graduate and move on with my life and not do another postdoc or not, you know, do a visiting role. And so you're really keeping your options open by pursuing both. It does maximize your opportunities and chances of landing a role, and you have the opportunity in building a broad professional network, right? So if you're talking to lots of different people, you may really have the opportunity to interact with people that are going to be helpful no matter what you end up doing. And it can really assist you and recognize your transferable skills, right? You all have an incredible amount of transferable skills, even though many of you will doubt that initially. And I think that by doing both of these job searches, you will start to be like, wait, I do have a lot of skills that I could use in a variety of different ways. So on the other side, what are some of the cons? It's a lot of time and energy expended, right? It is a lot of time. Hopefully that chart illustrates like all the different things that need to be doing. And if you're doing double, it's more work. It can be a distraction from your dissertation and from other work that you might have doing. If you're doing teaching, if you're involved in any professional organizations or student clubs, you know, it can take away from that. The misalignment of timelines can mean that you may be forced to be making decisions about something when you don't have that other piece of information, right? So and this is a great problem to have, but it's really hard when people have it, is when you get a job offer for something that's interesting, but there's something else out there that's more interesting to you and the timeline isn't aligning, so you don't know what that other opportunity might be or if it even is an opportunity yet. Burnout for sure, which you guys experience anyway. Mixed messages and networking can be confusing. So one of the things that we talk a lot about, particularly in job searches beyond academia, is the importance of LinkedIn, right? And if you're creating a LinkedIn profile that's really geared toward something beyond academia, and then someone from in academia looks at it, they might think, well, this is interesting. This is a different approach that I hadn't thought, right? And so you may kind of get some mixed messages that can be confusing. And it's harder for you to stay focused and motivated because there's a lot going on. So we're going to talk briefly about self-assessment, which I think is the time well spent. Self-assessment is really where you're thinking a lot about what are your options and what are your preferences, values, interests, and skills. So the self-reflection is really kind of creating a cohesive narrative. And so in a second, Hannah's going to drop a link to a worksheet that AI helped me to create to help you brainstorm on some of these things. So what's the common core that runs through your work, right? Like, what is the common themes that you're seeing? The second thing to think about is that the underlying skill might be the same, but the emphasis shifts depending on the role, right? So you may have a skill that you're using in, your research that can really be applicable to something beyond academia, but the emphasis on that skill is going to change. Building materials and an elevator pitch that can be tweaked for different audiences, right? So I talked a little bit about the mixed messages that you can get when you're trying to do both things and sort of talking to other people. Practice telling your story to different audiences. And finally, really owning this. You're not undecided. So not saying, I don't know, I throw up my hands. I just need a job. I just want to get out. I'll be a professor. I'll do this thing outside of academia. You know, really owning, I have a lot of really interesting skills that I would like to keep doing. And I could see myself using these skills over here. And I could see myself using these skills over here. And really owning that these are interesting things to you. So this is the worksheet. Again, thank you, AI, for helping me put this together. But this is going to give you some examples, and you're welcome to download this and take a look at how you might follow these 5 steps in sort of exploring a two-pronged approach. So walking through a common core, how to translate that to differing audiences, and finally crafting statements for both job search tracks. Okay, so key takeaways that I want you to have before we talk about resources. Doing a two-pronged search is possible. Knowing what to prioritize and when is the key to staying on track. My answer to everything is networking, networking, networking. It's really going to be your key. Narrowing down your interest beyond academia to stay focused is going to be the most helpful thing that you can do. There are definitely people who will go through the faculty job search, send out a bunch of applications, maybe not get the success that they were hoping for, and then have time to turn around and start applying for jobs that can line up with their graduation. The key to that success is having a narrow set of goals in what you're trying to achieve beyond academia, as opposed to being like, okay, now what? I'm not sure what to do. You can think a little bit about narrowing things by job type, narrowing things by industry, even by location. Now, you guys have all lived your lives, and many of you have a particular geographic area where you need to be or want to be. And even narrowing down by location can be helpful in sort of guiding you what is worth spending your time on. So, resources that Career Services has to help you. Let's go over these. So the first is Imagine PhD. Imagine PhD is an excellent resource, primarily geared toward people in the humanities and social sciences, which asks you lots and lots of questions about your values, interests, and skills. And then it comes up with different types of job families that would be interesting. It does have job opportunities here as well. But it is a really helpful option that I would strongly encourage any humanities and social sciences PhDs or postdocs to take a look at. The PhD Career Training Platform. So the Beyond the Professoriate is an organization that is focused on helping PhDs figure out what they might like to do next. There are different modules that you will find here that are really going to be helpful in you exploring career options, making decisions, and then actually implementing your search. There are 2 tracks that you can follow when you get into the PhD Career Training Platform. The one is more toward academic roles. The other is more toward beyond academia. You can log on here using your pen key, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of it. They actually have a lot of programs coming up. They have their own faculty job search boot camp coming up in a couple of weeks. So there's quite a lot going on that I think would be helpful. Fall career fairs, I mentioned the first one is on Friday, September 5th. This is just a screenshot, so there's actually more than that you can't see. Fall career fair, the large career fair is September 5th. Engineering and technology, we have an all industries career fair. We also have a biosciences career fair, which is heavily focused on PhDs and postdocs. So lots of options for you to attend these. Again, don't just walk in and walk around and start talking to people. Do a little homework ahead of time. We will have workshops available that will help you sort of figure out how to approach a career fair. I talked a lot about networking. Informational interviews are really a very key part of networking. What an informational interview is when you are having a conversation with someone who does something that's interesting to you and you're asking them lots of questions about what it is they do so that you can learn more. You're learning more because one, you want to figure out, is this as interesting to me as I think it is? Two, do you have this types of skills, experience, background that would be necessary for this type of role? If you don't, are there things you could be doing in order to get those? And the third is you're hoping to make some level of connection that can help you later with job opportunities, right? Are you hoping for a referral? Are you hoping for them to let you know if something comes out? The goal of an informational interview is not a referral and not to ask for a referral, but to create a relationship that will then lead to a referral later. So we say, who can best answer your questions? Those who do the work themselves, right? And alumni or other connections with PhDs. All of you went to another institution for your undergrad. I encourage you to tap into their alumni networks as well as the Penn Alumni Network. So finding alumni on LinkedIn. So this is the University of Pennsylvania page, and you click on alumni to get started. I think I looked yesterday, there's over 200,000 alumni who are in the LinkedIn Penn page. I went to Lehigh as an undergrad, so I decided to look up Lehigh as well, also an R1 institution, much smaller. So what I did here is just a quick search for PhDs because I wanted to see how many PhDs do they have listed. Penn has 5,000. Then this is an example. I looked at Lehigh, 826. This is a great way to get started in terms of trying to find people to connect with. I would be less concerned about what someone got their PhD in and more concerned that they just have a PhD, right? So if you're someone who's a bioengineer, but you're finding someone in the life sciences, that's okay, but they're gonna have that shared experience of having the PhD. So this is a great way to start finding alumni. LinkedIn, some resources that I think would be helpful. Penn offers you for free using your PennKA LinkedIn Masterclass. This usually costs $100. If you are someone who really wants to get started on LinkedIn and really wants to dive deep, I highly recommend the Masterclass. We have 2 videos that our office has put out in the past that would be helpful for graduate students. One is the how to showcase your research in your LinkedIn profile. It's really geared toward PhDs and postdocs. The second is leveraging LinkedIn as a grad student. And so both of these YouTube videos I think would be helpful for you in terms of trying to see what are some of the ideas that you can do. I think someone's asking, where can we get the links about LinkedIn? Hannah will drop those in the chat. So one of the things that I have really mentioned over and over and over again is that you all as PhDs and postdocs have access to career advising. I would highly recommend that you schedule an individual advising appointment with us. This QR code will take you to LinkedIn. Will take you to Handshake, which is where you can request an appointment. We are approaching the time of year when it is really busy here, and you might have to wait a little bit for an appointment. I think there are probably some appointments later this week and certainly next week. So feel free to schedule an individual advising appointment to talk more about your particular situation. Hannah just dropped in the chat, request an appointment on Handshake. That link is there. Again, upcoming programs that we have today, CVs versus resumes, job searching as an international student. If you are someone who is going on the academic job market this fall, and you would like to apply to be in our faculty job search cohort, that is a program that you are welcome to apply to. We have you apply as an in-person program. I think you meet 4 times over the month of October to work with other students and postdocs across campus who are applying to faculty jobs. And we are having a writing studio tomorrow afternoon. I believe it's waiting list only at this point, an opportunity for you to come here and work on your writing.